The Provoke Podcast, brought to you by Provoke Media and produced by the international broadcast specialist Marketeers.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the long-awaited second edition of our CEO podcast. The reason that you've had to wait so long since I talked to Richard Edelman a few months ago is that I really wanted the second of these CEO podcasts to feature Susan Howe, who has been for the last how many months, Susan?
I'm coming up on 6 months in the official role.
The last 6 months, CEO of the Weber Shandwick Collective. I've known Sue for probably longer than either of us would like to have mentioned on air. And I thought in her role leading one of the top 3 global public relations firms, she would make a great subject for this podcast. And there have been a couple of misfires trying to get us together, but we're here now. In a weird twist of fate, I'm in New York and Susan is in London, which is the reverse of the normal situation, but we are nevertheless connected. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you, Paul. And I do feel very honored to be your second guest. I loved listening to Richard's take. And yes, we are on opposite sides of the ocean, but seeing each other and coming through loud and clear. So thank you so much for having me.
No, not at all. Let's start, if we may, with a little bit of your early career. I know that you briefly spent a couple of years at Hill & Knowlton, but really you're a career Weber Shandwick person, right? It's 28 years in total with the firm?
You've got it. And actually, before Hill & Knowlton, I actually did a year at Edelman. So but I am in baseball parlance, and I know, Paul, you and I love talking baseball. I'm a homer. So I am lucky to have built my career at Weber and have done pretty much every job along the way, kind of picking up a piece as I went. But now it's coming up on, it'll be 29 years in July.
Now, was it Weber Shandwick when you joined?
No. So I'll tell you, I started at Bozell PR, and of course, Bozell and we were True North at the time, and we were acquired by IPG. So I have been through a major acquisition. So I'm sure that we'll cover that today, just how we're all feeling about the acquisition ahead with Omnicom. But it was Bozell PR. So a lot has changed. I've had many different business cards with lots of different company names, but I will tell you that I have the same phone number as 1996. So if you still need to find me and you knew me in 1996, you can. And also the energy of the agency is unchanged. So those are things that I think have remained.
See, I knew we were going to get sidetracked on this conversation. And this is the first of those sidetracks. So if you look at all of I'm going to be really rude now. If you look at all of the firms that came together to create what is now the Weber Shandwick Collective, right? And going back to, there was Bozell and there was Sawyer Miller, and they became BSNG. And
I
on
had
the
that
other
card.
side,
I had that card,
side,
BSNG. Yep.
there was
Weber and Shandwick.
And there was Shandwick, and they came together to create Weber Shandwick.
Yep.
Out of all of those 4 firms, I always considered Bozell to be the least impressive. It felt like a sort of slightly gray, slightly traditional business-to-business firm. And yet, it has given Weber Shandwick 2 CEOs, right? Andy Polanski and yourself. So
Gail,
Gail,
Andy, Gail. So the last 3, so including me, the last 3. So Andy, then Gail, then me. And Harris came, Harris was also in the mix. When I started, Harris was in Bozell PR, but he had come in through the political side. So that would make 4 CEOs. And I think what was magical about, I won't attribute it to the name on the door. I'll attribute it to the culture that those leaders created, which is this combination. And I think you can see this reflected in Gail and Andy as leaders, this culture of change. What's coming next? Where can we solve for our clients? What can we look out and find? That's Gail Hyman. And then collaboration. How do we work together? What's the solution? How are bringing things together, making a better outcome for our clients? That's Andy Polanski. So they might have worn a card that said a different name, but who they were has shaped so much of who we are today.
Okay. And then just take us quickly on your sort of journey up the ranks at what became Weber Shandwick, because you've held some interesting titles before your current role.
Yeah, sure, of course. I mean, I began, as I said, nearly 29 years ago. I was in the Chicago office where I live, and I ran big accounts. And then ultimately, I started running the Chicago office, which was a flagship for our brand business and still is today. My next role was looking after the global brand practice. So that was the chance when I got to have a better understanding of the global complexity and work with so many of the markets on our accounts that are multinational. Followed by, I got the incredible title of Chief Collaboration Officer. And really the mission of that job was to figure out what solutions we needed to bring for clients and what teaming would bring those solutions together. So I know you're interested in the many parts of the collective, and the collaboration role was really about how do we get the most out of different assets. I then became Chief Growth Officer. I became Global President. And then when Gail announced her retirement, I was selected to assume the CEO role last year.
Right. So tell me a little bit about the collaboration role, because one of the things about what is, again, the Weber Shandwick Collective, and we can talk about sort of the difference between Weber Shandwick and the collective and how that came about as well, is that it has all of the potential problems of any big global agency, in that firms of that size have historically tended to organize themselves into silos, almost unintentionally, even when the silo structure wasn't being imposed. It tends to evolve organically in a lot of agencies. And that can be an obstacle to global collaboration, again, across offices and across practices. So how did you break down those silos, and how successful do you think you've been in breaking them down?
Oh, thanks. That's a great question. And I do think it goes back to the fundamental culture and what sets Weber apart. And it's this combination of restlessness and reinvention. So one of the things that we've always prided ourselves on is looking ahead. What is the tool, the technology, the next chapter of communications? And either built or sometimes acquired or partnered to be able to bring those services into the network. And at the same time, we have this very distinctive collaboration muscle. But my role when I was Chief Collaboration Officer was to take the good intentions of individual contributors and make it a system. So what should our talent pool look like? What is the mix of strategists and creators and digital analysis to build a solution for our clients into the future? So that role, it was such a fun thing to think about and work on. It was frankly workforce planning. What does a team of the future need to look like? in order to continue to solve for our clients. So we built systems, we created structure, and we also supercharged the natural tendency of our teams to want to operate together. And I think that that has been a huge differentiator for us and for our clients.
So there are two things that always seem to me from the outside looking in to be massive challenges when it comes to running a big global agency the size of Weber Shandwick. The first we've touched on, and I'd like to dig into a little deeper still, is culture and whether it's possible. How many offices do you have?
The final count is 59.
59. So,
Yeah.
okay, how is it possible across 59 offices, each of whom has a different personality at the helm, to create a kind of cohesive, consistent culture? And then the second thing, which I know is a topic dear to your heart, is creativity. Because I think there are a lot of people who think that there is some sort of inverse relationship between creativity and size, and that it's easier for little boutique firms to be consistently creative than it is for the behemoths of the industry. So I guess the first question is, how do you achieve a consistent culture? And the second is, how do you encourage creativity across that culture?
Oh, I love it. And I would dispel the myth of small for creative any day. And you and I have talked about this many times, and we'll come back around to that. So our culture is a dynamic living organism. Culture, you have to create and then nurture and cherish. And I feel that, again, our leadership team today and the leaders who I follow have really made it an imperative that working together brings stronger results. So when you have something that is really decades in the making, it permeates the system from St. Louis to Singapore. And I'm so lucky to have traveled to so many of our offices around the world. There is a visceral feel when you arrive at Weber. You can feel the energy. And of course, there are days, there are moments, but we have made this who we are for so long that it helps us attract and retain the kinds of people who want to build together. We share culture in lots of ways. And I think one of the things that we're really proud of is what our employees tell us back, how they feel they are seen and heard in Weber and in the collective. And the fact that they believe that being in a large multinational with so many solutions gives them a chance to grow. If you started out as an account person or a creator and you end up as a strategist or you move to another location, all of those opportunities exist. And I think that attracts a certain kind of talent. It certainly brings us certain kind of leaders, and it creates opportunities for our team to grow. Oh, and then to the creative side, I think you know very, very well Tom Beckman. He is an incredible force to be reckoned with in the PR industry and beyond. And what Tom has held us accountable to, long held us accountable to, is ideas that work in the real world. And I think he calls it not in the zoo, but the jungle. I'm certainly no Tom Beckman, and I couldn't take his analogy any further. But we have such a high premium on creating earned first ideas that travel and deliver business impact for our clients. And it is around the world. And I think that's a huge ingredient in why our culture has synchronicity as you travel to different locations. And you and I have talked about before, I love your creativity index, not just because we rank well in it, but because of the interesting algorithm that says creativity is not just born in one place, but when you have lots of places bringing ideas forward.
Yeah, I think you guys have shown up on our top 40 global campaigns pretty well over the
I think we had
last.
9 this year.
I think so. And in every region too. I know there were campaigns from North America, from Latin America, from Europe, from the Middle East, and from the Asia Pacific region. So that presumably says something.
Well, and that's culture. That's culture in action, because we place a high value on ideas, and that attracts a certain kind of both leader and team member.
And what are you seeing in terms of the trends that are impacting creativity and what clients are looking for? How real, for example, is the retreat from purpose-driven campaigns? And have they been supplanted by this desire to sort of connect with popular culture and to maybe be a little more lighthearted and entertaining and joy-driven rather than purpose-driven?
Two things can go together. I think that the largest trend that we're seeing, and Paul, I know you talk about this all of the time, and I've read what you've been writing recently. It is the fundamental shift in media and how media travels. And so I think that as creators and creatives today, we need to come up with new systems to make our ideas work harder in a completely changed world. So, 5 years ago, it was a completely different media ecosystem. Frankly, you could argue 12 months ago, it was a completely different media ecosystem. So what that means and what that pressure that puts on an agency like Weber is the need to continuously watch how you can choreograph a story to engage on the other side for our clients in all different methods and mechanics. I do think that purpose holds a huge part of the future. I think that what happened maybe a few years ago was people jumping on purpose in a shallow way, not to mix my metaphors, versus those brands that are intrinsically built for purpose. So
Right.
the cases where brands were dabbling, maybe that will fall away. But the cases where purpose is absolutely who a brand is, that will always remain. And that's where it's frankly the most meaningful. And I think that purpose can give joy. So to me, they're not incongruent. There's congruency in both joy and making an impact in the world. And I know for our teams, they love being a part of campaigns that do both. For example, we work on for McDonald's support of the Ronald McDonald House. So the campaign we did this year was bringing back the Shamrock Shake with Grimace's Uncle O'Grimacy, Stay With Me. And that had a campaign that was very, very lighthearted. It worked in meme culture, but at the same time, the ultimate mission was to remind people that McDonald's and the Ronald McDonald House charities are intrinsic partners. And by purchasing, making a commercial endeavor, you can actually do good in the world.
And that's a great example because there's nothing at all performative about the Ronald McDonald houses. They've been part of the McDonald's culture for decades. There's no question about the authenticity or the commitment of the company. And those kind of purpose campaigns seem to me to be immune from the backlash.
Agreed.
So let's talk a little bit. You used the words earned first earlier in the conversation. And obviously in recent years, when we've been in Cannes, for example, our roundtable discussions have focused on this idea of earned first. And also on the way in which that concept has and has not changed the role that PR firms are playing within holding companies, right? So to a certain extent, our philosophy has taken hold, but we haven't necessarily been the agencies to benefit. McCann has won plenty of PR lions over the years, for example. How has Earned First changed your place in the ecosystem?
Yeah, great question. And I mean, I think that we are the earned accelerant for so many client and interagency teams. So sometimes that's within IPG. Of course, we partner all the time with our sister agencies on campaigns, on programming, but also we are very, very skilled at working within an agency ecosystem that may not be our holding company, maybe be partner agencies. What I think we bring is a combination of data-led insights. So our profession has gotten so much more sophisticated. We are able to look at audiences, track the motivations, find the opportunities in culture and conversations, not based on gut and know-how, but combining rigorous analysis. And that is fuel for ideas across an IAT. So within Interpublic, I think we're seen as an earned accelerant. Certainly our sister Golan is an incredible partner as well, but we are an earned accelerant for ideas. And frankly, so many of our clients expect us to be at the table with a variety of agencies, and there's generosity in the data and the insights to make the work better.
One of the other issues that I think is interesting when you look at it through the prism of the holding company structure is AI. And I know plenty of people who believe that the investment that holding companies are able to make because of their size in AI will be a differentiator going forward. I also know that Weber Shandwick has made its own investments and has developed a number of really interesting tools in the sort of cognitive arena. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how you see AI playing out, what you see the benefits being, and whether there are any potential downsides that are worrying you.
Great. And great question. And you're right. And it goes back to culture that I talked about before, where we see our role is to continue to reinvent, to be the agency focused on the future. AI is a huge part of how we will do that. And I'll say, in terms of Interpublic, one of the greatest tools within Interpublic is our ability to tap into Acxiom data, which, as you know, is the largest ethically sourced data stream on the planet. So that is fundamental in us being able to craft campaigns and have them be laser focused on the buyers that will move our clients' business forward. So we're able to lean into Acxiom And we're able to use many, many tools that the holding company has developed. For Weber, we've taken this earn first lens and applied it to AI invention also. And I know that when we've gotten together recently, we've talked about all of the ways that AI is coming into the work every single day. And I don't think that there is a PR practitioner within Weber that isn't thinking about AI as a tool. Some of the ways that we're using it really effectively are in terms of synthetic message testing with personas. We're using it in terms of influencer identification. We're using it to find the cultural hotspots of where trends are. And AI just gives us a huge jump up, being able to sift through an enormous volume of conversations to identify where we should develop ideas. I see it as fuel to our creative heritage. And I think those of us who are in it every day feel energized and excited by it.
Are you at all concerned that, and this is sort of a weird leap and a big question, obviously, that that AI is going to have some impact on our ability to write and to think? I've begun to develop a concern that is sort of what I've been thinking of as the pocket calculator analogy. The calculators
Wow.
made it unnecessary for all of us to be able to do basic math in our heads. And I'm more worried about AI in that way because I think there's an inextricable connection between our ability to write and our ability to think. And if we start to outsource the writing to artificial intelligence, I wonder whether we're going to lose that ability to sort of think and analyze for ourselves, and maybe therefore to develop the next generation of counselors.
Oh, that's such a good question. You're right. Like I'm very dependent on my pocket calculator, which is now on my phone. So it's a good question. I think that humans will always be the ones that will make words sing. And you are a writer. I wish I could, claim your same mantle, but words matter. And I believe that humans will be the only ones that can make words better. Where I use AI in my daily practice relates to being able to synthesize. So I believe you still need the subject matter expertise to look at what AI has developed. And I haven't seen any example of AI writing that meets the Paul Holmes criteria. So it's a good question. I haven't considered, and I'm going to reflect on how do we not become the pocket calculator. It's a very good question to think about.
You've referenced a few times during the conversation the sort of restless nature of the Weber Shandwick culture and the
Yeah.
the sort of search for almost if it ain't broke, break it, or at least question it, or at least interrogate it. This idea that you have to make yourselves better all the time, and maybe that plays into a little the fact that there's been some disruption since you took over. It hasn't been a simple continuity. There have been some high-profile departures, like Chris Perry in the U.S. and Michael Froelich in Europe. And what does that reflect? And how are you changing the firm going forward?
Of course. And I do think that I'm so lucky to step into this role after incredible leaders, but I'm also really energized by the leadership team that we have going forward. So I did reset. As you know, I named Karen and Jim as global presidents, taking parts of the role that I had. They each have such incredible strength and skills in terms of strategic thinking, business operations, uh, corporate advisory, brand building. So it's this, I have this incredible mix of team members working with me. And I think that each moment and each step is part of a plan to get us to the next chapter. I mean, obviously the folks that you mentioned, Chris Perry had been with us for so long and is going off to start his own consulting thing. He's incredibly lauded, but he also leaves behind him a team that is extraordinarily strong in terms of innovation and continuing to build that agency of the future. So I feel really confident in our leadership group and in the way that we are set up for now and into the next chapter.
And then the other thing that is going to define or at least impact the future is the pending Interpublic Omnicom merger. Most of the coverage of that merger seemed to regard public relations as more or less an afterthought to all of the other benefits of bringing together two giant holding companies. What are your hopes and expectations for how that deal will impact Weber Shandwick and the collective going forward?
I mean, I, of course, don't know what will happen, but I am very energized about the opportunity. And I'll tell you why. I think it's more chances for our team to have new opportunities with different agencies to do alchemy, to make magic. And when you look across the network at Omnicom, there are a lot of partners we've worked with for clients for many years. I have a lot of respect for the Omnicom PR group. So I believe that it gives us a broader playing field. It's great for Interpublic. I think for Weber, it creates opportunities for our team. And I know that there's a lot of excitement about what it could look like. And as I said at the top, you know, we have been through this before. It was a long time ago, but I know that the learnings and the energy remain the same. Who we are is what will, I think, drive how it looks in the Omnicom chapter.
And looking forward, you know, maybe over the short term for our profession, because obviously the turmoil that is going on right now geopolitically and politically domestically here in the US creates both opportunities and challenges. And then in the long term, you know, the importance of stakeholder relationships going forward. How optimistic are you, and where do you see new opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, you've said it. It is a very complex time, and I think you can't underestimate the kinds of pressure our clients are under in this moment of uncertainty and change. And I think everyone is watching the business environment related to the administration change and the geopolitical challenges and changes. I think for us, for Weber and the collective, what we bring is made for this moment. So, as I said, we have created an ecosystem that is able to solve both joyful, purposeful campaigns and really gnarly business issues. And I don't think there are very many firms in the world that can answer both sides of this environment. So we're supporting our clients in all kinds of ways, navigating today. We're giving them insight of course, into the geopolitical conditions. We're helping them prepare for a variety of eventualities. We know that reputation and how reputation is viewed is changing. So our advisory services are at an all-time high. But at the same time, we also are watching the media environment and how we need to continue to evolve and bring brand and business stories that help move the needle on behalf of our clients. So I am an optimist. You know that about me. I'm a Chicago Cubs fan, so I have to be. But also, I'm optimistic that the solutions we've created will help our clients even in this time when so much is unknown.
And you've created an ecosystem, presumably, that will help you come up with new solutions as new problems arise.
Absolutely. I mean, and when you think about it, the questions at hand can't be answered with one note. So having so many kinds of thinkers in our mix puts us at an advantage to differentiate in the solutions we invent.
Great. Thank you, Susan. That was a terrific conversation. I hope gave everybody some insight into how Weber Shandwick and the collective continue to evolve, not resting on your laurels at all, which is one of the things I've admired through several generations of leadership at Weber Shandwick. So looking forward to the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Provoke podcast, brought to you by Provoke Media and produced by the international broadcast specialist Marketeers.